Welcome, one and all, to Liberty After Dark live stream. We hope that you enjoy the show and will engage in the conversation along with us. So, without further ado, here's your host, Christian Moore.
What is up, my dudes and dudettes of the live stream? Looks like we got little D3s here for sure. Cool beans. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, actually, yeah, never mind. Doesn't matter. Yeah, cool. So if you can't tell, lots of changes to the stream. Oodles, as one might say, of changes to the stream. We're using a totally different restreaming system. What's up, man? So we're trying to get the show out to as many places as possible, which is always fun. And because of that, I can never remember where anything is. Like all my stream health stats. Cool. Here they are. Okay, yeah. Give me 1 second. I will need to change some of these things for the next time. However, I think that'll be all right. The chat here is looking all right. How's everything sound? I'm actually going to turn this audio down, or the music down, just a little bit. It's supposed to be pretty quiet. So, just to get this out there so that everybody knows, I am changing some things. I'm going to add a little bit of music underneath, and we're going to play with the music, figure out what goes best for the night. It's an interesting song. I'll have to go through and curate some actual music, but I'm going to be recording a totally musicless back, like a audio track on Audacity while we do this. And when I do that, I'm going to post that as the podcast, because even though this stuff is supposed to be like DMCA free music, so it's safe for YouTube and Twitch, I don't really trust it for podcasts. So we're just going to do voice for the podcast. Plus, it's more of a podcasty thing to do. So give me 1 second, guys. Hold on. I'm trying to do. I just realized that my autofocus is on, and that will not do. There we go. Look at that. Get rid of that focus. Boom. Cool. All right. Sweet. So I guess I'll give let me just make sure everything else is working. Give it like 2 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and we will get this ball rolling. Also, we are joined by well, I guess it'd be better if I went this way. Doggos 1 and 2. And I think I'm going to go ahead and turn the fan on. It's kind of warm in here because the light hits the shades. So give me 1 second. I'm sure I will have to edit out a low hum, but it feels so much nicer. Oh my gosh. That's literally a million times nicer. Hello, doggos. Yeah. How bad is the delay? You should be able to see it on the stream from when you type to when it shows up on the restream chat. It's technically Mob Crush, but also, yeah. Do you like the little DVD bounce? That was fun. That was new. I saw that as an add-on, and I was like, well, why not? I have access to it. Sounds fun. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff here. Let's do one more thing real quick before we get going. Let's see here. Stations. You know what sounds good? We're gonna play some synthwave music. They got 34 hours of it. Oh, personally, I love this stuff. So, a little delay. Okay. You're on YouTube, so it's not like 20, 30 seconds or anything like that. I mean, if it is, it's fine, because this is probably going to be how we do things. But it was nice having that really short delay, so I was kind of worried about that. Let me just make sure all of the streams are up and running. And then we will go ahead and we'll get started. We're not going to do a very long episode, because the reason that we're doing this early today is because I have a... I promised weeks ago that I would go to my cousin's musical. She's in high school, and today is the last showing, so I literally have to go today. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I promise, so I kind of have to. It'd be a very douche move, as the kids say. You can't hear it? Is it just too quiet, or you just can't hear it at all? Because it definitely should be streaming through. I'll give you a second. I'll let you while I do this. Yeah, too quiet? Okay. I will I'll turn it up a little bit. Just a little bit. That's as loud as I'll go with that. Cause I mean I can't really check it right now. I mean, I guess I could. Okay, yeah, YouTube's working fine. Here, yeah. You're gonna get a little bit of feedback, guys. Actually, just give me a second. This is the problem with I don't know. I was trying to figure out how to test stream this, but I couldn't. So, just give me 1 second. Here, yeah. You're gonna get. Give me a second. This is the problem with. Okay. Cool. I think that'll do it. 11 seconds of delay. All right. Well, that's still better than Facebook or YouTube. So, Facebook and normally is. So, I wonder if that'll add that to Facebook, or if it'll be normal on Facebook, or what's up. But ooh, I kind of like this. It has like a beat to it. On the Edge by Athelon? I don't know. This is all free music, so. Yeah, one more little thing. I promise we'll get to this. We got to start sooner rather than later, because, like I said, we're on a time crunch. So, no, this is all free music. So. Sounds about right. Sounds about right. Okay. Let me go ahead and hit record on Audacity. Which is, oh, that's actually like beautiful. That's like perfect volume levels. I mean, obviously I'll have to come back and post and fix everything and not take out all the bumps, but just like right out the gate, it's looking pretty spicy. So that's good. Cool. Minimize that. Sip of water. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this episode of Liberty After Dark. I think it's episode 30, because the LLN episodes, part 1 and 2, that was its own thing. So part 1 and 2 of that were episodes 28 and 29. So this should be episode 30. I'm not posting that mini episode that I did to the podcast. I don't like it, so it's not going to go to the podcast. Sorry for any of you guys who might have been waiting on it. You're not missing out on anything, so don't feel too bad. Honestly, I am going to change this just a little bit because that is a little too high. Cool. Yeah, but you're not really missing anything. It was just a quick overview of the stuff that basically happened in that time period between the last show that I did and when I hadn't done a show yet. So that's it. Like I said. So we're not going to be doing the mini episode, counting it as its own thing. It's going to be off into the... It'll stay on YouTube and just be a little YouTube view. But some news since the last show. First off, we've got Trump acquitted. We all knew it was going to happen, but his impeachment was the shortest impeachment trial in U.S. history. I think it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah. I think it was first or second week of January when it started. Well, second or third. So yeah, it would have been about 3-4 weeks. And that led up to, right before that actually, was the State of the Union address. And the State of the Union address was fun. Only because, I mean, it's all a big political show. It was, it's only been in modern times, well, more modern times, that it's really become this big event. Before, it was just something that the president sort of did. It was covered in the newspaper or something, and then they just moved on. But it got turned into a big televised affair. Now we have the monstrosity that it is today, which, love it or hate it, it's not going anywhere. That's for dang sure. So, yeah, really, other than that, well, Virginia, the House Committee passed the assault weapons ban on sales, transportation, some high-capacity magazines, etc. So that's always fun. My least favorite kind of news, honestly. I like talking about other things. Obviously, since we, if you didn't listen to the mini show that we did, the UK has officially left the EU, so Brexit is over with. Brexit is done. And that is pretty cool, honestly. I mean, I'm pretty proud of GB for finally stepping up and getting out of there after 3 years, I think, after Brexit initiated. Almost, 3 years. So that's just crazy right there. I was gonna type in something real quick. Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Just while I'm kind of chatting with you guys, just so I can not give the wrong name for this. But so I think something that is pretty interesting to talk about, though, that I kind of touched on, is that we live in very, in my opinion, very interesting times. In especially this last 2-3 years, have just been very, very interesting times politically, socially, economically. It's definitely something that I think we're going to be looking back on for a long time, and not necessarily in a bad way, just that we have a lot of things changing, and a lot of things are making way for new things. We have a lot of push and pull in our own society, even, that is kind of almost creating, I think it's probably been this way for a while too, so maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic through all this, but just when you look at the trends of history and you look at what's going on right now, I think we definitely live in an interesting time. We're probably about to be in the next emerging technologies phase, as some people will call it. Basically, the last time we had one of those was the smartphone. The smartphone, obviously changed the world forever. Most of the things that we have today as byproducts of 21st century society is thanks to the smartphone. Not to say that things like social media and whatnot didn't exist before that, but not to the scale that they are because of the smartphone. So the theory is that we're on the cusp of that next thing that's going to change the world forever. And I think that's pretty cool to think about. And also, just socially too, I like to think that we as a species trend towards a freer society. And because of that, I like to think that people are starting to become more aware of the preposterous, I don't know what a good word for it is, manipulation of the state on themselves, that they have kind of allowed to exist. I think more people are seeing it every day as the government proves that it never was a representative of the people. I mean, just look at this whole Virginia thing. That's a perfect example of a government not representing its people and not looking out for the best interests of its people. Not, if you like the Constitution, not defending the Constitution, not standing up for personal liberties or really anything of merit. It's pretty sleazy, and honestly, that to me was some of the worst news that I've heard in a quite a minute. So, we're not going to spend too much time dwelling on it, really. But I did want to make sure that it was clear, it was transparent that this did happen, and these are going forward going to be things that we might have to slightly look at going even further south to other states. I think that's the big thing with Virginia. We didn't really get a chance to talk about the Virginia gun rally on the show either, just because of timing and with shows and stuff like that. But that's the big thing for me, is that I didn't expect Virginia to be the place where this happened. I expected Maryland and Massachusetts and New York and Connecticut, and I mean, Connecticut's, they have a pretty big pushback too, but I expected states like that, Washington, Oregon, to be the ones to give up these things. California. I didn't expect Virginia. I don't know, it's just not, they, especially a state that's so proud to be a part of the South, I just didn't expect this from there. So it's it's a little jarring. I'm not gonna lie to you, it is a little jarring, but what can you do except maybe boogaloo at this point? We'll see how things go. Obviously the governor can always step in at the end, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So, yes, it is live, Aaron. It is live, 100%. I think that, yeah, again, it's just, we live in interesting times, really. It's going to be one heck of a unique next 10 years for sure. Next 5 years. Next year. I mean, this election season is going to be interesting. It's going to be putting a lot of really big ideas at the test, because right now we have this revitalization of both the left and the right. Everything's very highly politicized in 2020. And I'm really just curious to see what happens when the, iron, when it gets struck, when it's hot. I think that, it's gonna be an interesting 2020. Really, that's all I wanted to say. I know I said I wasn't gonna spend too long on all this news stuff, and I wound up spending a bunch of time on all this new stuff. Go figure. But I did want to, just kind of communicate that for anybody who didn't watch that little mini episode, that there is definitely some interesting stuff going on. And I think it'll be fun to look at from the outside. Maybe not so much the inside, but definitely from the outside. So let's go ahead and move on to the main topic of today's show, which is going to be a discussion about some stuff that, really honestly kind of upset me whenever they were first talked about. And, not really like triggered, but just, let me give you some context first before, I start sounding like a mamby-pamby over here. So I've been catching up on my Joe Rogan, right? I've been behind by quite a bit, and I wanted to make sure that I caught up with especially I don't watch all of them. I watch a lot of the MMAs, and I watch people I think might be interesting, like when Robert Downey Jr. was on, bigger names, people who I recognize, especially people who were involved in politics. But Another podcast that I listen to, called the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, is hosted by a guy named Lex Friedman. And I loved 99% of the show. 99.9% of the show between them. I loved. I thought it was great. Definitely, you should go listen to it, in my personal opinion. But they were talking about the exchange of ideas, right? And that's something that I focus on a lot in this show. Is this idea that we really have to learn to communicate, and condescendingly almost, educate, because a lot of people don't understand. And I'll get to that a little bit more in just a second. But I was listening and really enjoying what they were saying, and agreeing a lot about what they were saying. And finally, it got to the point where they were basically building up a scenario, talking about how difficult it is to moderate any sort of conversation online, whether or not that conversation is something that you want to have, just like they said, the Wild West. I think that was the Twitter CEO who said he wanted a Wild West. And there's like this awkward space in between that you have to figure out where the lines are, because everybody has their lines. And they talked about how, obviously, as the provider of the service, most of these companies are completely in the right doing what they do. YouTube can shut down anybody they want. Is it in good taste is one thing, but are they justified in doing so? 100%, no doubt about it, in my mind, and in theirs as well. But is it right, really? I guess we're talking about two different things here. Is it ethical? Can they do that? Should they be punished? No. But is it right? And they were talking about how, bad faith actors in conversation, and they set up a scenario, and it's like, imagine that we have a room full of people. I think it was Lex who set up the scenario. He said, we got a room full of people, and they're all talking about different fiscal policies, and you got a conservative and you got a liberal here, and one's talking about how we should raise taxes for this, and the other one's talking about how we should generate, or we need money for a project, we got to save it somewhere else. And then someone's talking about how we got to figure out how to balance generating taxes, and someone else comes up and says, oh, well, I don't believe taxes are any ethical form of collecting currency, basically, or funding a government. I don't remember the exact words that he said, but basically he was calling out people who say taxation is theft, right? And he said, how do you have a conversation with these people when there's no fundamental understanding? And I think that's kind of, that's a great question, and I hate the way he asked it. So my initial reaction was like, what the hell do you mean? How do we have this conversation? Like, when he posed it that way, and I know it's because he and Joe have this same kind of wavelength. So obviously, they're normal in the view that taxes are necessary for a civilized society, blah, 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 blah. And I think, that's why it wasn't really challenged. Nobody really cared, whatever. They just kind of glazed over that and just accepted, like, oh yeah, that's crazy. How could anybody actually think that? And, it just kind of reminded me how niche our ideology is, and how much it ticks me off that gets used against us. And so that was really like the start of this gear grinding that we're talking about in this episode. And when I say it really ground my gears, I mean it really, really ground my gears in that moment. And not really like angry. I guess maybe grinding my gears isn't the best way of putting it, but it was frustrating. I was trying to think, like, how am I supposed to have a conversation with you about this when you've basically admitted that you think my position's crazy right out the gate? Like, I'm sure you've heard it before. I'm sure you've heard someone talk about taxation as theft and try to convince you. It's not that uncommon of an idea. You've at least seen the arguments happen. And whether they were good arguments or not, you've already written the idea off as like, no one seriously thinks this. And that's really insulting, honestly. What's up, Mary? Imagine if the situations were reversed, right? Imagine if, Lex was sitting there, and or we'll go into his domain, right? Because he does the artificial intelligence podcast, and he's a brilliant guy. It works for MIT, and he does a lot of work there actually. And he left MIT. He does a lot of his own work now, but he's deep in the field of artificial intelligence. And it would kind of be like if everyone accepted the fact that general intelligence was impossible, which, maybe this isn't the best example because that's a very controversial conversation. But then this one particular person, let's say it's Lex or whatever, it says it's not possible, and everybody's like, that's crazy. Who would ever think that? Or that it is possible? Who would ever think that? You're just a loon, And the way that it was presented on the Joe Rogan episode was that it was like people that believe that taxes aren't a way to run a civilized society or organize or fund a civilized society is a bad faith actor. And I didn't appreciate that, because he was lumping us in the same category. It's like if you were having a conversation on social justice or something, and then like a blatant racist walks in, like that's the same category we were being lumped in. It's like, okay, well, a bunch of a conservative and a liberal are talking about economics, and then you have this libertarian that walks in. It says taxation is theft. I mean, my biggest problem with all of this, right, is that obviously the conversation needs to take another layer down. It needs to go a layer deeper than people are willing to go. Because so many people just want to write off the fact that, like, this is just not something you question. We've been doing payroll taxes for literally decades. It's the way it is. But it is theft, exactly, right? So Josh here has hit the nail on the head, and obviously my YouTube viewer counter is not working, but it's 100% theft, right? In our opinion, fair, okay. A lot of people disagree with us, and that's fine. They are completely allowed to disagree, but I think when it's posed this way, it really pisses me off. Like, we can't have a serious conversation with you because you think taxation is theft. Like, what the hell do you mean you can't have a serious conversation with me? What do you mean I can't be a part of the conversation? Like, I disagree with people on a daily basis about all sorts of things, fundamental things. And that, like, discounts me from the conversation? Not only do I not agree with that, I don't appreciate that. And you see this all the time, especially when people are not talking to a libertarian, or a voluntarist or an anarchist or whatever you are. If you were a person who would say taxation is theft or extortion, but you don't really see this when they're there, either because the person doesn't say taxation is theft because they're afraid of the backlash, or two, they say it and then they say, oh, well, why do you think this? It's not, oh, well, we can't have this conversation because you're a crazy loon. It's always when they're not there, and that really pisses me off. There are other groups that have this same kind of problem. I will even accept the fact that commies get this. Commies get this all the time, and this is why I try not to, like, I will joke, obviously. I joke. I try to be the funny guy, You gotta be cute or funny, as my mom used to say, so I guess I tried to be the funny guy. And it's, but there's no way that I would just shut down completely someone who wanted to have a good faith conversation that was like an actual Marxist communist. I would have a lot of points to drive, and I would have a lot of critiques and a lot of criticisms and a lot of all of the above. But there's no way I could sit there and just say, like, oh, we're not even going to have this conversation. You're just a bad faith actor. Like, you're so in the fringes that we can't even have this conversation. Like, what the hell does that mean? What the hell is that about? It grinds my gears. It really does. And this isn't something that's new. It happens all the time online. But to see two people who I believe have the best interest in mind of preserving a cohesive conversation, wrapping us in with like flat earthers, okay? Now, if you're a flat earther, you're gonna find this very insulting, kind of like I did. But flat earthers spit in the face of science and all understandings of reason and logic, and then they make up things like how the sun is an orb that's floating. What is it, like 1,000 feet or something off the surface of the disk, and just dumb things like that. Just completely unbelievable things like that. That just you can't help but think that this person is a bad faith actor. Honestly, like, you've either been duped, which is just as bad, or you're trying to coerce and convince people into believing something that isn't true. And that we get lumped into that same camp, and it's really frustrating because I feel like instead of, every single argument that a flat earther makes, you can just debunk with science. You can just use science. You can use mathematics. You can use all these systems that we have proven, that. And they'll say, oh, it's, just big globe. But there's no way to disprove taxation is theft. You can't. You physically cannot disprove taxation is theft. If you say taxation is theft and someone says, oh, well, you get goods and services for it. Well, I didn't consent to those goods and services. Say, oh, well, you use the goods and services. That's not consent. Look up what consent means and tell me if that's consent. And then they'll say, okay, well, maybe you didn't consent, but you're still using them, so it's not theft. And I said, no, that's not how theft works. Look up theft. I saw a thread. Let me read this comment from Lyle. I saw a thread where a guy was showing all the craziness of the Biden-Ukraine thing, and someone responded, I'm sure Trump has done 10 times worse. Yeah, I mean, like... I'm not getting into that. It's just a like I think there's that, like, stuff like that when you don't actually have anything to say, right? Man, we'll flip this a little bit, okay? If someone came up and you were trying to have a conversation with them and you were like, look, taxation is theft, and they introduced, even, let's say they started the conversation and they were like, what do you think the tax rate should be? And you're like, oh, well, I don't really think taxes are a legitimate way of running a civilized society or funding a civilized society because, they involve coercion. And you give them the whole spiel. And then they say, no, you're wrong. No. Like, what? That's a bad faith actor. When someone brings up a legitimate criticism, and then someone says, oh yeah, well, I bet your guy, he did bad things too. Like, what is this, the third grade? Is this is this the third grade? And then, yeah, I mean, I don't really blame the guy. So you said the guy shut the conversation down after that, and I can't really blame him, honestly. But it does go both ways. If it was a legitimate criticism, I think, you kind of owe it to starting the conversation to respond. You're not obligated, but I think, just in good conversation and rhetoric etiquette, you kind of should respond to things like that. But if someone comes up to me and they just said, like, we were having this taxation and theft conversation, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, if you think that's stealing, just think of all the money that the corporations are going to steal from the excess labor of, or whatever, some extreme leftist theory. And, I mean, that's not an argument. That's not a good argument, at least. That's like third grade logic, It's like watching the Zodiac Killer murder people and then saying, oh, well, I guess I can murder people, Not to specifically dwell on this, because I honestly, it's not even close to the top of my priorities. But, the Biden-Ukraine thing, people are like, look, there are legitimate concerns about what Biden and his influences in Ukraine and what that's led to. And, someone coming up and saying, like, well, Trump slept with a prostitute. or Trump did XYZ bad things, or something as nondescript as, I'm sure Trump has done things 10 times worse. That's not a conversation. That's not good rhetoric. That's not logical. That doesn't defend the actions of Joe Biden. And I get it. When you go into a conversation like that in the 2020, you can't help but feel like it's politically charged. Like, whether or not it's politically charged, like if I said Joe Biden potentially did really dirty things in Ukraine, that's not a political comment, because I'm not rooting for his opponent. I mean, I guess I technically am. His opponent is us, but I'm not rooting for his political opponent. I'm not on the other side. I'm on a totally different league, okay? Like, they're playing in the NBA and I'm in the NFL, you know, like that's what this is. So I don't have a horse in the race of Biden versus Trump. I have a horse in the race of bad things probably happened. Unethical things probably happened. But you're right, Lyle. It is deflecting. And I guess that's really what really brought all of this to my mind, and what really just kind of made it fester there since, like, I think it was Tuesday. I think it was. Yeah. Was this that podcast episode with Lex Friedman. I was thoroughly enjoying all of it. I really enjoy the topic of artificial intelligence. I really enjoy Lex, even though he kind of sounds like a robot. He gets that criticism all the time. He does. But he has a great podcast. He's a very smart guy. Joe Rogan is a great interviewer. I love his show too. Funny guy. Hilarious. Yeah, Caleb, this isn't After Dark. What's happening? Yeah, it's not After Dark. I just so you guys know why we're doing this so early, my cousin is having a musical this weekend. This is the last showing, and I promised that I would go to it. I wasn't able to go last weekend because it was my best friend's 21st birthday, and this weekend I have to, I gotta go. I promised. Just gotta gotta be a man of my word. So change the name to Liberty Before Dark. I'm not gonna do. We already got a branding thing going on here. So next show will be 8 Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. That will be an After Dark episode. So just today is Liberty during the day. We talking about AI? No, actually, we're talking about people not taking anything a libertarian says, or voluntarists or anarchists or whatever, seriously, because our ideas are not a part of the norm, and how much that pissed me off. So just as a quick recap, because I know we kind of got sidetracked a little bit, Lex Friedman was on who does the AI artificial intelligence podcast with himself, Lex Friedman. He hosts it. He was on Joe Rogan's show, and they had a great podcast. Awesome, you should listen to it. It's fantastic, hilarious from beginning to end. And then you should check out Lex's show because it's great. But they were talking about having a conversation in the internet sphere, and then they set up a situation. But also, let's talk about AI. We can talk about AI. I think that's pretty interesting. But so they were setting up this conversation here, and they brought up the scenario of a conservative and a liberal talking about tax policies and whether they should increase funding and whatever. And then they were like, imagine if someone came up and was just like, oh, well, basically taxation is theft. He didn't say that, but that's what he meant. And they were like, oh yeah, you can't even have a conversation. They're so far off base. And I was like, I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't even understand it at all. Like, what do you mean we can't have a conversation? That was my initial reaction. I was sitting in my car on the way to my math class because I'm doing college again, and I was just bebopping along, listening and really enjoying it, and just, man, today's gonna be a great day. And I heard Lex, like, how do you even have a conversation with that? And I was like, my head seriously like cocked to like a 45-degree angle, and I was like, what what the bleep? Like, what is this? You know, what do you mean? What is going on here? It's just, you know, I won't complain too much more about that, but it definitely grinded my gears, 100% grinded my gears, and I don't really know how to fix it, honestly. You know, I think I slightly clickbaited in the description all this, where I said, like, let's talk about how to fix this. I don't really know. Like, if someone comes up to, like, the only way I could see is to make the idea more mainstream. I mean, okay, here's the cop out. We got to educate people. It needs to not be this knee-jerk reaction, and I don't know if it ever will not be a knee-jerk reaction, because we have a knee-jerk reaction for everything. We have a knee-jerk reaction when someone says they're a Democrat, when someone says they're a Republican, or when someone says they prefer Windows phones to Android or Apple. You know, we have a knee-jerk reaction to those things. Or someone who says, like, they still own a Zune. You know, knee-jerk reactions to all of those things. And so I don't know. Maybe it's just part of how our brains are wired to see the different in a mostly negative, honestly, light. But how do we get a little bit of curiosity in people? I think that would fix so many problems. So many problems. If we just gave people a little curiosity. If they were able to sit down and say, like, you know, like, why does this person think this way? What is happening? What is his goal? What is my goal? What are we trying to achieve here? I think that would go a really long way in helping a lot of the problems that we have. Because right now we just make enemies. We make the person who disagrees with us into our enemy. But, you know, as volunteerists, I think more jokingly than anything do it. But you know, we see people who support the state or commies or whatever you want to call them as an actual, you know, threat, and they are to an extent, but not like it to the extent that we can't have a conversation with them. I think that's really important, because if we can change minds, that's the best way to do things, honestly. And, you know, I don't know. I think to a certain extent, you either have to be born into libertarianism, or you have to be curious enough to ask the questions that get you there in the first place. And it takes an inquisitive mindset, and you can't be too worried about what people think of you, because of what we've been talking about this whole show. And it's kind of sad, honestly. It's kind of sad. A little bit of a bummer, I'm not gonna lie. All we have to do to fix this problem is rewire how human brains work, okay? We're gonna give everybody little No, we're not gonna do that. That's horrible. Somebody said they wanted to talk about AI, though, in the chat. I saw that. I'm not sure what exactly you wanted to talk about with AI, but I mean, it's a pretty interesting topic. If you guys want to talk about that, I can just go ahead and edit the title of this in post, and we can tack that on to the end here before we wrap up. Because we got probably about 30, 45 minutes of show, if you guys want to go that long. Let's see who said it. I got my little chat window open right here. Let's scroll up real quick. It was Caleb? I thought it was someone else. Tim. But also, let's talk about AI. That's who said it. Well, if you're still here, basically how AI learn and pattern detect. So that's, I mean, we're mostly, today, I'm sure most of you guys know this, like, I'm a computer science student. I'm not an AI professional. I know the very rudimentary basics of programming. I've done a lot of reading, obviously. I mean, I say obviously, it's probably sounds a little douchey when I say it like that, but AI is very interesting. It's not even necessarily to go as far as like the theoretical general intelligence where most people who enjoy ethics really go. I think AI as it exists now is very, very, very interesting. We have For the first time in human history, we have the ability to create algorithms that learn by mass processing data at an unprecedented scale to do things in ways that we don't even understand how they're doing. So let's bring this back a little bit. So when Lex was on the Joe Rogan show, they were talking about YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. And, he interviewed a lot of these people too. So I've seen his interviews before with them. But they were talking about something that I don't think a lot of people know, is that YouTube doesn't know how their algorithm works 100%. Like, they can watch it and study it, and they can kind of figure it out. But they don't have the source code that says, like, oh, this is exactly how this algorithm works. And even if they did, they wouldn't know what it was doing anyways. It wouldn't look like a human wrote it, because it wasn't written by a human. It was created through a process called machine learning. And machines are very, very what's the word I'm looking for? These machines are not intuitive in the way that they create things. And that's what makes them better than us at it. Because we have intuitions that keep us from designing sometimes these perfect systems. We have our own human quirks and instincts and pushes and pulls that keep us from making these systems. But the machine, it'll just always, if there's a way to do it better, it'll just kill off its current version, make a better one, and you won't know what changed. Is it a 1 here? Is it a 0 there? Did they change the way that viewer retention is by changing how the recommended videos stack is ordered based off of, maybe they prioritize certain videos from the same creator, but now they swapped it to where it's other creators first and then the same creator. So if you really want to see more, you got to scroll a little bit. Maybe that keeps viewer retention on the site, but they won't know exactly what changed. They just kind of have to figure it out by watching it. It's like, it's more akin to someone watching in a nature, like living with the chimpanzees, It's not like you can interview or look at the source code of a chimpanzee and be like, oh, how does this chimpanzee work? How do these different social units work? You have to... Oh, wow, this is a funky song. Jeez. They have to stop and watch and take notes and learn from it and observe it. And it's crazy. This isn't even general intelligence. This is just... You can make something like this with Python and a little bit, terabytes of data, years of data, decades potentially of data. And that just blows my mind. Facebook works the same way. Facebook's algorithms they can be tweaked. They have their own way of adjusting it, but they don't really know how it works, right? It's like if you were hired somewhere to turn valves, okay, and you know what the valves do. Like, this valve moves water to the left, and this one moves it to the right, and this up and down. You got all these valves, and you just work the valves. But you have no idea how all of the piping works. That's what the AI has built, is all of the piping. All you know is that when you turn that valve, water goes into the left side of we'll say the bilge, bilge pump turns on and pumps water out, or whatever this analogy is. But you have no idea how that internal mechanism works. Tim asks, so we can learn more about ourselves by asking AI to better tune algorithms to suit our behavior. Crazy. 100%. And AI is the best marketer on planet Earth. All of the targeted advertising that you see today is based off of AI. Because no one wants... So everybody has the one story of, especially back, a few years ago, you would type anything in Google and it would just, ads for it would pop up everywhere. You would type lawnmower once because you wanted to look up a video of a dude doing a backflip off a lawnmower, whatever. And now everything, they're just lawnmowers all over. But now they have the ability to aggregate data on you. So if you type in lawnmower once, they figured out people don't like these really instant targeted advertisings because it's obvious, right? It's really obvious whenever you type something in once and then the next thing you know, it's all over the place. Like, say you were looking for a washing machine, and before you were getting ads for, tech stuff or video games or whatever you played, and then all of a sudden it's all washing machines. It's really jarring for people. And it's a lot easier if you lull them in. So Google's AdSense has learned through AI not to immediately dump all of these ad changes on people. So you'll look up, like I was looking up motorcycle parts, right? And it wasn't immediate when the motorcycle parts started coming through. It was like I'd see one ad scrolling through a website for Google AdSense. But it was after like 2-3 weeks of constantly looking up motorcycle parts. It had finally it's like, okay, you really like buying this stuff. So we're going to start giving you ads for all of these. And, it was websites I was already using mostly. But, it's like, oh, we saw you were looking at helmets. We'll recommend you some motorcycle helmets. And not only that, it was recommending similar style helmets to what I was looking at. Not just like, oh, you want to like a cap, little strap on it. It was like really nice decaled helmets. And, it could have recommended me any motorcycle helmet on the sun. That's what it would have done 5-6 years ago. But it's gotten way better at figuring out, like, okay, well, what, based off of our context, gets clicks if a person looks at something like this. And again, we can tweak those systems from our side. We can say collect less data, do this with the data, let the data expire after this time. We can kind of give it parameters to work with, but we have no idea how it's working. We just know that it works, and it works really well. And I am completely convinced that advertising and marketing is going to be completely AI driven in the not too distant future. Obviously, there will still be people. I'm not saying that there won't be people, but any companies that aren't already using artificial intelligence for targeted advertising, customizing advertising, analyzing previous advertising, and finding trends in advertising that work. That's something that's really big now, is getting AI to look at the success of commercials to start formatting commercials. And something that they found by doing this is that the AI will come back, after looking at several thousand commercials and all of their ratings, and then they'll come back and they'll say, okay, well, what we found is that if you do like a commercial series, so say, it's like a storyline to it, it's a more compelling commercial for people. So, what was it like they just did a throwback commercial. I saw it the other day. I think it was a Super Bowl commercial or something. But they brought back a mascot that they had from like the 2000s or something in their commercials. And, those are the kind of things that AI is probably in the room helping with these decisions, especially now. You could have made the case a few years ago that this was kind of, it was more just on the fringes, but especially 2020, AI is everywhere. It is all around us, everywhere. This system right here that, whether Facebook decided to give you this recommended feed or not, is 100% AI at work. It figured you wanted to watch this if you're on Facebook. And, again, this is like we'll say level 2 stuff, all right? Because we've had very rudimentary forms of AI for decades. But that was all just level 1. On a scale of like 1 to 5, like we're at level 2 stuff right now, guys. Like, this is child's play compared to what artificial intelligence can do in the future and will be doing in the future. Once we really get computer vision down, which is something that, that's going to change transportation in a flash. If we could just get computer vision down, we could, like, if someone came up today and they were like, all right, we've got it. Like, we've got depth of field. It can recognize any object, computer vision, boom, done. We already have everything else we need to fully autonomize all transportation. That's the issue, though. It's the computer vision part of it, which is artificial intelligence. Before we go on to Tim's comment here, have you done, what CAPTCHAs are? It used to be what you would do is you would type in like a word, okay? And so those words were part of a database of unknown texts. And it was, computers couldn't figure out what it was before. So what they did was they started putting them up as CAPTCHAs for people to put their answers in. And these are the ones that you could obviously tell were on a page, not the ones like the squiggles and stuff. That was for security and whatever. But the ones that were actual words on a page, that was for collecting data to see what it said, right? And some of them would have an already generated key, some of them wouldn't, and that's why sometimes they'll give you multiple. 2 of them were already known, 1 of them wasn't. If you get the other 2 right, you're in, sort of a thing. But now what they do, have you noticed that when you do a CAPTCHA, all of it, and I mean almost all of it now, is traffic. Find the crosswalk, find the stop signs, find the stoplights, where are the people, is this a bicycle, where's the motorcycle? Where's the median? It'll ask you all of these questions. And why do you think it's doing that? It's collecting data to sell to these artificial intelligence companies that are working on computer vision for transportation. So every time you do a CAPTCHA and you screw it up, well, one, it most of the time will figure it out. But if you give it like a close enough, you're giving partially complete data to these artificial intelligences. So I think if you're going to do them, it should be as accurate as possible. Because there is like a bigger thing going on here that I think some people kind of forget about almost. So I see, I don't know how long it's going to take for it to update, but before we go into Tim's comment, I see Liberty Late Night is talking in the Twitch chat, but it's not coming up on here, which kind of sucks. But that's okay because I can see them both. So it's whatever, I guess. But give me 1 second. I'm going to take another drink. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Moore, and today's guest is me. So I really do like Lex. I know I was kind of dogging on him at the beginning of this because he did kind of grind my gears, but I really do love his show. You should listen to it. Yeah, I know. Nothing's working. It's all off. I don't know who's where, but maybe I can refresh this real quick before we get going. Just give me like 2 seconds, guys. I promise I'll figure this out. No, that just made it go away. Dog needed out. No, you're good. I didn't, we hadn't even started on your comment yet. I was too busy figuring out why. Oh, well, now your comments are showing on here, so that's fine. Okay, cool. Well, Tim, okay, so you said I'm all about giving AI different types of input to see what happens, ears, a nose, etc. Well, so you have to, okay, right now, right, and this can change in the future, but right now, the AI that we have, this level 2 going on to level 3 AI, which this is a completely arbitrary system. It means nothing. I'm just giving you like a frame of reference here. No one else uses the level 2 to level 3 system. 100% just for context. But what you have to give it an objective, because machine learning is actually like a team of robots. You have a robot that builds robots. You have a robot that gives tests and grades the robots. So like the worst teacher ever. It just fills out, like it just gives people tests. Like you walk in first day of your class and it gives you the final. That's basically what kind of teacher we're talking about now. And then you have a bot that kills all of the bots that sucked at the test and keeps the best one, and then makes more and goes back to the builder bot and says, make bots like this one, but with slight tweaks. Just tweak any, just whatever, tweak it. Doesn't matter, right? And so this is when you get the concept of the generation. Okay, so let's say, if you just give an AI, okay, yeah, if you just give an AI this, what's the word I'm looking for here? Sorry, I just totally brain dead. If you just give an AI input with nothing to do with it, like there's no objective. Machine learning can't just create something without an objective, because without a test to score off of, like let's say you wanted to make a, I'm just gonna steal this from CGP Grey. If you haven't seen his video on AI, that's a great machine learning specifically. He talks about making a machine that can tell the difference between B's and 3's. Okay, and then you have the AIs all take the test. Is this a B? Is this a 3? And then whichever one gets the best score, throw all the rest away and make one like that. And usually one is the same, I believe, in almost every AI algorithm. One is the same as that one. That way you can't all get worse, I'm pretty sure. But make just like 1 or 2 tweaks to it all across. So once that's done, right, that's when you start getting your things. So if you say, I want to make an AI that can recognize stop signs, okay, then we can work with something. And you give it all of the sensory information involved in a stop sign. But I see what you're saying. You're saying, you're almost talking like you would be okay with exposing like a general intelligence level AI. So, says sure. So it's like a Parkinson's scent detection laundry sniffing AI. Goal is detecting Parkinson's. Yeah, you 100% you can do that. 100%. You just have to give it enough data to stop. Oh, okay, yeah, you're just checking out the features. Gotcha. You have to give the AI enough data to be consistent, because the first generation always sucks. Almost always sucks. And in a lot of cases, it takes hundreds, if not thousands of generations. Like YouTube it's almost more like strains of a virus. And they've kind of like infected YouTube systems. And so some users will be exposed to, and we're going to use this as an example because it's really easy to talk about, especially if you're like a YouTube power user like I am. But man, this is a gnarly song too. What the heck is this? Firestorm by Min Torment. Okay. If you're looking at, there's multiple AIs going around, and they're all going to report back to the builder or to the test bot, and the test bot's going to say, okay, who had the most viewer retention, who had the most clicks, who had the most watch minutes, blah blah blah, all these things, who had the most shares, likes, follows, retweets, all that jazz. And it's going to collect all of this. And this is a really smart one. So instead of just saying like, okay, who did B's, 3's, kill all of them that didn't get the B's and the 3's, right? Make more B's and 3's. It's going to collect all of this data, and it's going to weigh it based off of what it personally believes this data should be weighed at. And then it's going to make more based off of those weights. And so if the YouTube algorithms, they determined watch minutes are more important than shares and likes and subscribes, they will promote the watch minute AI. And I'm not saying this is 100% what happens. I don't know what YouTube's philosophy is. They will promote the watch minute AI and kill off the other ones. But say they get the same amount of watch minutes and one subscribes, shares, and likes more, gets more people to do that, they'll promote that one, and then they'll make another strain of that and put it out into the wild. So it's not just one algorithm that's out there. There's multiple different variations. They're always testing, always collecting data, always trying to improve. And some of them will run simulations, which is a whole nother. So your Parkinson's scent detection laundry sniffing AI, all it needs is enough scents and then enough tests and enough generations. So you just have to give it a scent, 2 scents. It's just one's Parkinson's, one's not. And then boom, you got, if it gets, you got one that gets 100% right, you make another generation, or 50% right, you make another generation. Maybe you'll get one that gets 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%. And then before too long, you've got one that's like 99% accurate. And yeah, then you can install it in your laundry and make a little side clip or something, and then have your Parkinson's laundry sniffing AI bot. That is totally possible. This is what they're doing with for like it's a lot simpler, honestly. We have a lot more information on it, but the heartbeat sensors that give out warnings for like, hey, like, you might be having a heart attack, or you might about to have a heart attack, you should probably watch out, or like you might be having a stroke here in a minute. All these things, like, that's all AI. That's all AI. It says like, well, we've looked at these parameters a lot, and we've gotten really good at knowing when people are about to have heart attacks, and you kind of look like you're about to have a heart attack, so might want to chill. But yeah, we got a doggo. We got 2 doggos, brown doggo and black doggo. And and again, oh geez, sorry, just kicked my desk. We still haven't even started talking about general intelligence, and we've been on this for like 30 minutes. That's just the implications of, if you want to start talking from the more liberty side of things, the implications of AI on liberty are terrifying. The collection of data, period, is terrifying. I don't think we take it as seriously as we should. I think we take it seriously, but I don't think we take it as seriously as we should, honestly. I think it needs to be a way higher priority than it is. But it's not as transparent, right? It's not as see-through as like, oh, trying to take my guns. That's a big no-no. On the other hand, you've got, they're collecting my data and they're selling it to, storing it, selling it, sometimes without consent, sometimes with less than ideal conditions and terms. And I'm not on the Elizabeth Warren train of like, we got to stop companies collecting all data, or a portion of all of your data should go to you, which that's not a terrible idea, but oh my gosh, it's a song about AI. What the heck? What is this called? Wheatley's Song of Miracle? What? Sorry, I heard it in the background and I was like, that's crazy, man. Oh, definitely. How much data until AI can know what I'll do next before I do it? Well, all you got to do is, technically, we have the stuff now, and report out. So you're talking like pre-crime stuff, basically. That's what you're talking about. If the government had total access to everything you did over the last, I don't know how old you are, let's say 25, 30 years, just, from childhood to now, man, yeah, I guess really they have everything they need after that. If they can collect all of that information and process it and create an AI that says like, okay, what's his next decision going to be? And then they'll just compare it to what you do. And it may take God knows how many thousands of generations to get one that accurately predicts your next move. But the second that they get one that predicts within a 90 to 99% accuracy, they're going to call that good enough. They're going to say this person has a 90% likelihood of crashing a plane into the IRS building. That's all it takes. All it takes is the data and the time to process it all. He's barking at something. I don't know what it is. It's a terrifying idea, honestly. So anybody here gamers by any chance? I just got the second game. It's on sale right now, but Watch Dogs, basically that's the whole idea there, is that they have this Internet of Things, their whole smart city is all being centralized. All of the data is being routed through one location. And that is being given to the government. And the way that they say it is it's like Big Brother and Little Brother become Super Brother. They work together. There's no distinction anymore. And, that's 100% a reality. Now, how much money would it take to set up that infrastructure? How much money would it take to make all of that happen? A lot. An unbelievable amount. But it doesn't mean it's impossible, They'd be okay with just a 10% chance of it being correct. Yeah, Josh. Well, it would be like a 10% chance of it being correct, but they would advertise it as like a 80%, 100% of our crimes that we stopped didn't happen kind of thing. I'm right 100% of the time, 10% of the time. It's gross, really. I mean, it is gross thinking about that. And this is the kind of stuff that it's not as superficial as like, and I say superficial not to say it's not important. Like when I started this episode, we were talking about the Virginia thing and how gross that is, but it's not as superficial as like, oh, they're trying to take my guns. It's like, no, they don't have to take your guns. They'll just arrest you before you ever get a chance to use them. I mean, really, like that's the thing, right? Is that if they can start pre-criming, like you'll get swatted before you even have a chance to do anything wrong, and it won't be like some teenager swatting you. It'll be the government swatting you. Swatted by the government. That's crazy, man. That's just a crazy idea to think about. Like I said, it's gross. Really, it is. Probably like another 20 minutes and we'll have to wrap up here because I'll have to get ready. We gotta, gotta take the dogs out and everything and then get ready to go to this musical. But yeah, I mean, it really is crazy. And there's a chance. I think we talked about this once before on the show. Once you get to like, well, let's say what we're at now is like I was talking about earlier, like level 2, and you get the level 3, which would be like the Internet of Things. We've really kind of perfected machine learning almost, or it's perfected us, however you want to look at it. It's implemented everywhere. I would say level 4 is a human level intelligence, and then a level 5 is a human level intelligence that can make itself smarter. It employs the same kind of machine learning tactics, but on a general intelligence. And the level 4 to level 5 is such a small increment that it's mind-blowing. It's, really all you have to do is get the human level intelligence with consciousness, set it to a machine learning like pattern where they create and do the generational malarkey, but for intelligence and learning capacity. And man, yeah. That's it. I mean, is it game over? I don't have that answer. I think that we might as well go for it, because whether this is a very controversial idea, but as someone who's a realist in all things, I think that whether we do general intelligence now, or whether we do it, or whether some Russian hacker in 100 years does it in his backyard off the grid and then injects it into society, and then you can't stop it after that. But either way, it's gonna happen, and we might as well. If it really is this flip of the coin, if it really is utopia or dystopia, take the bet. What do you got to lose? I mean, you might say your life, but you're gonna die anyways. So I guess the worst case scenario is, instead of the robots killing you, they just enslave us. That'd be pretty terrible. Or they do like some Matrix thing, which I guess isn't the worst, honestly. The Matrix is probably better than just straight up being enslaved, but oh man, it's a crazy world out there. And like I said at the beginning of this, we live in really interesting times, guys. We live in really interesting times, and they just keep getting more interesting every year. Nobody knows when the next general intelligence, or when the general intelligence will be developed. I think it's an inevitability. Some people say it's impossible. Most of those people, though, are like, I don't know. They're very pessimistic on their outlook, in my opinion. With time, I think most, if not everything, is pretty much possible. Unless it just fundamentally breaks the laws of our universe, which, who knows? Maybe AI consciousness breaks some fundamental law of the universe, but it's not any fundamental law that I'm aware of. I accept the criticisms that, like, we don't have enough of an understanding of human consciousness, which we did an episode on that, by the way, which it's one of our most popular episodes. But we don't understand enough about what human consciousness is. And I'm almost, I you're not really supposed to use this word because it makes you sound like a crazy person, but again, go back and listen to that episode and maybe it'll give you some context. But I think that there's almost a merit to like a panpsychist worldview, that consciousness may be more of a fundamental aspect of just complex structures than we realize. I need to link, what I'll do for the show notes of this is I'm going to link some on Facebook in the community group. which is another reason why you should join the community group. I'm going to link some stuff about AI that I've been reading pretty recently. I will link Lex's podcast because I brought it up like 30 times, so I feel kind of like obligated to bring it up. And I will also sorry, I was playing with this thing in my hand. I'll go ahead and I'll post something about consciousness in a thermostat that I think, or a thermometer, that I think you might find pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, once you go down the rabbit hole of general intelligence, it's not a big leap to start making it self-improving. And if you're Sam Harris, you think it kills us all. If you're Elon Musk, you think it kills us all unless we make ourselves useful. And then if you're some really optimistic people, you think it ushers in a utopia. I kind of like Elon Musk's idea, honestly. Make ourselves useful. It's coming, eventually. Might as well put ourselves in the best position to not be exterminated. So, if the AI doesn't have a reason to exterminate us, it won't exterminate us. It's an AI. It has to have a reason for something. That's the thing. It'll always have to have a reason. Unless we make it, or it makes itself, completely irrational, which is totally a possibility. It's crazy to think about. Another thing, too, right? And there are fail-safes around this, obviously. There's so much done in AI ethics, but there's always the fear that you create an AI that, let's say it, just plus some additional things, but it follows the Asimov's laws of robotics and artificial intelligence. And there's a couple of things you have to add to that, which I can link some videos to that too if you are interested in that. But you put yourself in a situation where you can create an AI that, in a learner bot, in a builder bot that says like these have to always be in there, and so you can do that. But whenever you start bringing in incremental and varied change into the system, you completely lose. Like I said, we don't even understand how the YouTube algorithms work. You really think we're going to understand how a general intelligence AI works once it starts making incremental changes to itself? No. Yeah, no. Game over, dog. I mean, okay, maybe not game over, but we're going to have absolutely no freaking clue what's going on at all. None. And that's fine, it's to an extent, that's part of the game. I mean, what do you do, right? What do you do? That's really the best way of asking it. What do you do? I say go for it. A lot of people say that's unacceptable. I say one way or another, it's coming. So, but I'm really gung ho about a lot of these things. I would go almost as far as to say that I'm a transhumanist, which I haven't really probably put as much thought into as I should before saying something like that. But by pretty much all accounts, I would say I'm a transhumanist. Maybe. And again, it's more because I think whether we do it now or not, it'll be done eventually. Like the whole making ourselves useful for artificial intelligence thing. I'm not going to go super deep into this because we do have to go pretty soon. But Elon Musk's Neuralink project is a brain lattice. It goes over your brain. It's supposed to use electrical impulses to manipulate your brain's chemical composition. Essentially, you have almost unlimited capabilities with that. From putting people into comas and then projecting realities into their brains that don't actually exist, all the way to something even further than that. And don't chew on that blanket. That's an electric blanket. He's trying to shock himself. Yeah. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless. But what it also will allow us to do is integrate with the artificial intelligence. Whether that means assimilate, like the Borg, I have no idea. No idea, guys. I don't think a hive mind would make any sense, but who knows? I don't know. Make ourselves useful, I guess. So it's almost like creating a god at that point. It's like maybe the god won't care about us at all. Maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's pretty. I didn't expect to be talking about AI on this episode, but it's always fun to go off into tangents and talk about new things. Next week we're doing rights, so come with your question on rights. I think that's going to be it for this episode, though. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my spiel. Thank you all for coming. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and share and all that jazz. I don't know where you guys are looking at, but if you're on Facebook, I guess I'm streaming to Facebook again until they piss me off again, and then I stop streaming there. But make sure you follow the community group. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell icon. Now there's another option where you can choose to only get some notifications, all the notifications. If you're watching this live, you probably want all the notifications. If you're not, maybe only some is fine. It's up to you. If you're on Twitch, follow, all that jazz. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We got a Patreon. $1 a month helps. We're just trying to break even right now with the website and all that stuff. So I think we got a couple bucks to go, and then we're good there. And yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have anything for me? Looks like this is perfect timing because my dog's getting restless. Say hi to everybody, Loki. Hello. Oh, he's sniffing the microphone. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I will catch you next Saturday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, with an episode of Liberty After Dark, episode 31, and it'll be called something about rights. My dogs are losing their minds right now, so we're going to go ahead and end this. Y'all take it easy.